Welcome to another edition of ALN Thursday at 3. My name is Mike Bordenaro, Executive Director of the ALN, and I can't believe that this is only our second program in 2026, and we're already up to Ed Safdie telling us about leadership requirements for education and training. This is such an incredible presentation. Ed sent me the slides ahead of time, and they're actually fitting in with our asset leadership standards. So our ALN Thursday at 3 is affecting our programs with other associations like Linux that are affecting organizations like the United States government. So we look forward to talking with Ed. But first, we'd like to thank our patron members, Mantech, Onuma, AVS Quality Evaluations, and all of our organizational members. They allow programming like this and um, an upcoming event in Washington, D.C. on January 28th. No, April 28th. It's going to be at DC government, focused on state and local government, a full day of success stories. I was thinking of January 28th because January 31st, a bunch of ALN members are getting together in Las Vegas for the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers annual convention. It's a lot of big assets that need to talk with each other, and a pilot project that the ALN has been facilitating and stewarding is going to be announced big time at that event. And then things will hopefully expand and involve other members for other types of pilots that prove that asset management provides transformational benefits that you want to prepare your organizations for. And that is exactly what Ed Safdie did when he was with Guidehouse. Ed, you want to join us?
Yes,
He
should I
helped,
turn on my video?
please. Ed
Mike.
helped provide education and training for the architect of the Capitol's Senate office buildings team. Our federal government is complex, and our Capitol building system is complex also, and it requires dedicated focus for the nuances between a Senate office building and a House office building. It's incredible, but it's really big difference, and it requires a whole different set of approaches that follow the same principles. And that's what Ed did there. But I'm so happy and proud of what he did there. I could talk about it, but we should let Ed talk about that. He's got some slides for us. But first, Ed, can you give us a little bit of history without taking up the full 30 minutes? Because you've had such a great career. We could just sit around at a bar and talk for 30 minutes about your various jobs with no problem.
Oh, thank you, Mike. It's been a 4 decade plus journey, and I've been very fortunate. Most of it was in the Department of Veterans Affairs. I've been a biomedical and healthcare engineering officer in the field at several medical centers. Had the opportunity to work in strategic planning at one of them, which is a very large healthcare system. Later, I got to work as the VHA Director of Healthcare Engineering, and that gave me a close-up view of the federal bureaucracy in central office. And after that, I was very fortunate to serve as Chief Operating Officer and CEO at one of our medical centers and finished up in construction and facilities management at the VA. After that, I joined Grant Thornton, which became Guidehouse, and about 2 years ago, went in to be a sole practitioner. And I partnered with Guidehouse. If it weren't for their help, we couldn't have pulled this off. It was a wonderful team effort. An opportunity arose to teach the Senate office building executives and a group of their registered professional engineers, architects, and other professionals how to prepare for ISO 55001 asset management implementation. And what I'm going to share with you in this very brief slide deck are the key messages that I wanted to convey to this exceptionally forward-thinking executive who wanted her staff to be ready for what they were about to embark in. And I think, Mike, that might be a good time to bring up the deck.
Okay, while I'm bringing the deck up, just I won't be able to see any chats or questions, but please, as questions or comments come up, put them in the question or chat area. Chat is preferred, and we'll get to them as soon as we get through the slides, which I will be sharing in just a second. If my slow computer jumps to this place, and it just did. So it's been my pleasure to be working with Ed on all kinds of programs and activities, and um,
There we go.
we have developed quite a friendship. And it's through.
Uh-oh. It froze, Mike. Um, uh,
Well, that was very bizarre.
yeah, it's all right.
Um, Let me try this one more time.
There we go.
This was where it got tricky last time.
Okay.
I'm not going to go to full screen. Let's just go with this.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I see some of you have joined that I haven't seen in quite a while. It's nice to see your names up there. Um, can I start from the outset by saying a lot of the messaging, if not all of it, is something that you professional asset management folks already know. What we were trying to do in this training is something very different than just training on ISO to pass the certification exam. That's not what we were after. The next slide shows the key messages that I was trying to convey to Stephanie Jones, the executive director of the Senate Office Building Engineering Group, and her colleagues. Um, you're going to need a lot of patience on this AM journey, so get ready. And where you place the AM office is critical. I'm going to say something about each of these as we go very quickly through these. There needs to be a commitment to properly staff the AM office, and for heaven's sake, a commitment for adequate management of information systems. And finally, please take a look to be realistic about your facility condition assessment backlog and how this goes into direct competition with asset management, because the immediate need for operational safety and provision of services is going to come first. It's always going to come first. So with that, we can go to the first one. I was trying to show the team that, the next slide, that it's a heck of a job to establish an AM practice. Absolutely. It's quite a haul. And I think the AOC as a whole has done a fine job of establishing their practice. But it also takes a great deal of time for refinement. And you all know the kind of challenges that will be faced. There may be policies that aren't followed, they're not enforced. The information management systems can't keep up with the data that was deemed required in the asset management system. There are any number of moderate to huge challenges that they are going to face. I didn't want them to get frustrated, so I went through historical vignettes to show them what they might be up against. The next slide, this Venn diagram, something that you all know very well. All the support offices have to work together to make asset management a success. Facilities management, acquisition, FM, we can add IT to that, we can add HR to that. And asset management, in my humble opinion, should be an independent office. It's shown here as an independent office. And in my opinion, it should not be subordinate to any of the other contributory offices that help build, I should say, that help practice the asset management. They need to come from a platform with some voice of authority to get everyone to work together and sing from the same sheet of music. The next slide. Why do I say that? For those of you who may have worked in federal service, it is so difficult to get funding to execute the projects that have been identified. The best capital planning in the world and the finest asset management practices can always be overtaken by the hurdles along the way to actually receive funding from Congress. And even when that funding is received, there can be execution delays that are of no fault to the executing office, such as a limited obligation period to use the funds or incomplete funding, which leaves the offices in a quandary to execute a project that's been fully designed with a certain scope. For those of you who have been in the field working in construction and facilities management, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is no small task, and the AM office has to be able to advocate strongly to reach that finish line. So this is something I wanted to convey to Stephanie Jones and her team. The next slide. You've all seen this out in the field. Just exactly how many elements can there be to the information management systems? You all know about these. Do they always talk to each other? Do they use the same platforms to gather data? No. And this is a serious challenge when you're trying to build data sets from which data can be transformed into knowledge for evidence-based informed decision making in asset management. And the next slide, I tried to convey to the Senate office building and the AOC that an honest assessment of their maturity on information management systems should be done. They actually did this, and they're in the midst of upgrading their systems. But one can imagine how hard it is to do that while you're flying the airplane. I mean, they've already built and established an asset management program, and now the IM systems need to catch up. In a perfect world, this should be addressed with the same thinking that activation of a construction project is addressed long before the construction period is over and you're ready to turn the key on a new surgical suite. That should be addressed during the planning and capital budgeting phase and the design phase for all the equipment, systems, and support items they'll need to open the surgical suite. Doing it after the construction is just completed, it's going to make it much more of a challenge. So in the next slide, again, stuff that all of you already know, data in and of itself is interesting, but data don't make knowledge. That data has to be transformed into useful, organized information, which then can be analyzed into knowledge, where the asset management office, supported by all those offices you saw in the Venn diagram, can make informed decision making to leadership. And the next slide. One last thing. Asset managers should keep in mind that the FCA, Facility Condition Assessment backlog for any given organization, especially in federal service, must be taken into account when you're planning for asset management. Again, in a perfect world, it would be really nice to have a working capital fund with a lot of freedom and discretion for the facilities maintenance and engineering groups to use to address these things that happen. Elevator goes down with a senator in it. There's a patient on the operating table and all the power is gone, including emergency power. The phone call's not going to be made to asset management. The next slide, Mike, the phone call
Mhm.
is going to be made to facilities management. And typically, leadership at the organization or level or even beyond is very upset. And they start to ask, how could you let this happen? I've been on both ends of that, and I've had that question posed to me, Ed, how could you let this happen? And I'd be flooded with data calls. And the response to the data call is, by the way, I've been asking for this funding for 4 years. It just hasn't been made available. That's why this happened. You were warned, and it happened anyway. So we need some asset management to avoid these situations. So that's a very brief snapshot of the messages I tried to convey to this group. And can I just say in closing, Mike, working with such a high-powered group of professionals over there was a pleasure. They posed insightful, incisive questions to everything that was presented in the ISO 55001 suite, and they learned a lot. And I know that they walked out of there more prepared. We know that because we gave them a post-class survey and got very good reviews. So thanks to Guidehouse for the team that they built to work with me. And thank you, Mike, for the chance to share this with our colleagues.
Well, thank you, Ed. The first question, of course, is did the elevator go all the way down? Or when you say go down, did it, the brakes kick in?
You know, kidding aside, that is a great example of how asset management can help an organization like the AOC. There are, if I recall correctly, there are 11 jurisdictions. Like Mike was saying, the House Office Building, the Botanical Gardens, there are all these different things, the Library of Congress. Well, guess what? They all have elevators. Should they be addressed as a unified program, or should each jurisdiction be looking at them separately? When our engagement ended, the Office of the Chief Engineer was advocating that they should be looked at as a program. It would be so organized. And you could do that with other things too. My favorite would be electrical distribution. So you all know this, you asset management professionals, but getting everybody to work together is a it is a huge challenge, which is why I, for one, having worked at all different angles in this business, advocate that the AM office should be reporting somewhere along the lines of the executive vice president or one step below the secretary, so that the office is independent and can assertively bring folks together.
Well, there's so much I want to unpack there. The human behavior aspect of leadership that's required because we're talking about changing human behavior. Why are we changing human behavior? Because the technologies that allowed us to advance created silos and it made sense to break into these different divisions. Well, now the technology that is making us advance is allowing us to break down those silos and we get to restructure societally or structurally in an organization differently because we now have different tool sets. And this is forcing the transformative improvements that can occur, and asset management is the best code words to quickly say how to control all of these possibilities that are now flying at us along with the requirements that are flying at us.
Are there any other questions so far, Mike?
Well, that was just one statement about that. So a question I have is you said as high up as possible. So DC government, which is hosting us on April 28th or January 20, or April 28th, sorry, is guiding its asset management efforts through the chief financial officer. Is that the level of height in an organization that you think is required?
Well, Mike, may I answer that by first saying this is just one man's opinion?
Oh, of
Um,
course.
uh, no, I think it should be an independent office reporting at the chief operating level. By example, again, just
Mhm.
my opinion,
Yes.
all those years in the VA, the asset management office was subordinate to the finance office. So even if unintended, some of their decision making may have been influenced by their location in the organization.
Ah, that's a great way to illustrate the overview you provided in that previous slide.
This is not to castigate anyone's efforts to build the program. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, independence is a must.
Uh, Understood and heard. So then the the interesting thing about this is that you were educating the leaders.
Yes.
What were you educating them about relative to ISO 55000? Was it a rote approach to it, or did you have examples for the importance of different sections that are spelled out in ISO 55001?
The latter. Everything that I showed them, and we went through all the ISO principles, everything that I showed them was presented through the lens of how is this going to affect a facilities management organization, and how can asset management help you, the facilities management organization, better perform your duties. So everything I presented was through those lenses, and I was fortunate to have replete real life examples to share with them to tell them exactly what I was talking about.
Did any of them resonate in a way that elicited more conversation than others? Any of your examples?
Well, yes, the one about the where I showed the blame-seeking missile.
Yes.
There were a lot of chuckles and saying how difficult it is because they're going to be bombed with data calls from Congress and they'd be back where they started. There may have been a thought that we already gave you money for this, didn't we? Well, actually, no, you haven't. And that's a hard message to give back because Congress at once is the customer and the boss. So it's a major challenge working in that organization.
How did you show them asset management ISO 55000 could help them in that regard?
Documentation.
Okay.
It's on them to prepare their requests for funding and to document the need for them and to do so timely so they can get it on the books. You've been told, we're showing you what we need. Here's why it's a priority. So that is the message.
Well, the information management issue that you said, it's always a challenge to get systems to align and to be using common data sets.
Oh, can I just share a vignette that's dark humor?
Okay.
A protege of mine that was interviewing for a position at an energy company. And he, having had some experience in asset management, the protege, when asked if he had any questions, asked, could I ask what you're doing to prepare your data sets so that you can engage in asset management? And the response was, that's IT's problem.
Oh,
So you
no.
see, going back to that Venn diagram, no, no, it's all your problems and you all must work together. And the asset management office, in my opinion, should be the driving force to get these different offices to work together to achieve success.
Well, here's a little history of the Asset Leadership Network. We started visiting the architect of the Capitol in 2016 and bringing them a summary of our annual events because we thought it was really important that the architect of the Capitol become the federal leader in asset management. And now there is an asset manager position at the Architect of the Capitol, Nancy Skinkle, who used to have a title about planning, is now asset management. And we think that maybe the message was heard. You were very complimentary of the system they put in place. What is admirable or repeatable, what they did?
Um, they had a contracted organization to help them build it. And in my opinion, they've done a great job with their asset management system. It's very well documented. Um, as some of us know from building an AMS, it can be a ponderous chore, and the documents come out to be very long, very long.
Mhm.
And parenthetically, I just like to say, I summarized all their policy documents to present it to the Senate office building because I know that those executives and professionals are so busy. They're not going to have time to read 200 pages of policies. So I summarized it for them to try to make it easy for them. But well documented. Everything is done with painstaking effort. Also, the data sets using the uniformat system, they were building those up, and it was very impressive what they're trying to do. Very impressive. Here's the catch. The information management systems are not ready to handle all that uniformat information that I saw specified.
So that leads to what we're doing with the Linux Foundation, which includes establishing the Asset Leadership Standards Committee, one of which the standards is a asset data structure standard that can help people, leaders. It's a leadership standard. So in 3 or 4 pages, what do you need from your asset data structure? And then help guide that instead of having 200-page policies influence the leaders, have the leaders set directives to guide the work.
Mike, you asked me what was so impressive about it.
Yes.
They had manifold policy documents, and they definitely laid out who is responsible for what.
Ah.
The part that I find to be a challenge, and with other clients as well, is the socialization of those policies
Mhm.
and the enforcement of those policies.
Okay, well, the socialization is evident in you providing training to their leadership team. And if you're summarizing their policy, they're getting more than just education and training. They are getting output from you.
So true, but none of that would have been possible without such a forward-thinking executive leader who recognized and catalyzed having this training perform for them. If I may, Mike, I would just underscore the training that we offered in 16 hours was markedly different from the training that all of us took to pass the certification exam. It was practical. It was practical in nature. Here's what this element of ISO 55001 means, and here's what it means to you. Here's
Because
what you're going to have to do.
it was specific because you knew their policies. This was a very customized training for them.
100%. I read every single one of them.
So you were prepared by having experience with the A55K certification. Do you think their team would before or after benefit from that?
Absolutely. And they had recently selected a brand new asset manager, sorry, a person for a brand new position at the Senate office building. And he was in the midst of the certification training when we finished our engagement with them.
Excellent.
They're doing everything they're supposed to do.
That's
And I
awesome.
encourage them to plan for the future to make sure that his tiny office was properly staffed so that they could do the work in front of them.
Mhm. So that leads us to leadership, which in a large organization like the Architect of the Capitol, which has the 11 different sections, it seems as if the Senate office building is taking a leadership position. And the Architect of the Capitol itself, by enabling this internal growth that could the Senate office buildings could lead the House office building, the Supreme Court, the Library of Congress, etc. But then the agency itself could show leadership to the other federal agencies on how to do that hard climb up your patience metric, the graph that is necessary.
They were not first. Another jurisdiction led the way as the pilot. And what the Senate office building leadership wanted to do was be most prepared as they possibly could to have learned from the previous jurisdiction's experience and having her staff ready to go.
Excellent.
That was on her. She was the one who catalyzed this, Mike.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, um, DC government is giving us a solid foundation on April 28th. So perhaps we can get a federal asset management day in the Capitol Building Conference Center, and we can focus on federal. And maybe we could get Stephanie to take the train over and give a presentation.
I think that would be wonderful. And Guidehouse, the firm Guidehouse, has had other clients of large federal agencies where, when I was with them, we helped them in their asset management journey. There are other possibilities, but the AOC is kind of a special one because it's fresh, and they tried to do as much foreplanning as they could.
Yeah, that's really something we want to emphasize, and that's critical in having success from that steep climb up that graph.
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you, Ed. This has been really good, and appreciate everyone putting up with the technical difficulties, and we'll see you all again next week. Bye for now. Thanks, Ed.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Mike.